There we go. That's why. Someone's like, I can't hear you. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. I should probably unmute myself, huh? All right. Thank you guys so much for jumping over on YouTube. If you're on TikTok right now and you have any questions for me, jump on over to YouTube because I'll be answering them over there. Also, I'm getting really close to 50K on YouTube and I'd like to hit that soon. So if you want to help me out, that'd be awesome. But yeah, anyone that has any questions, go ahead and start throwing them in on the chat. Otherwise, how's everyone doing? It's good to be back. I've been doing these lives now for a couple days. I think I'm going to try to do these like every day now, or if not every day, at least most days, because I miss doing lives all the time. Allison needs headphones or something because I can hear my voice in the other room, and I am not digging it. All right, we got a question here. And Do said, hello, I recently found your channel. Thank you for all you do. I too have schizophrenia and I'm learning a lot about building communities. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, it was one of those things that when I got started, there was a lot of like questions I had and no one I could really like go to. There was no content that I could find about like living with schizophrenia. And so I decided to make it myself. So it's one of those things. I'm glad people can use me as a resource because that's like what I wish I would have had when I was first diagnosed. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate it, Endu. Allison turned it down so that way I didn't have to hear my own voice. I don't know about anyone else that makes content. I don't like hearing my own voice. I used to have to like when I was doing a podcast with Zach, I used to like listen to it just because I was like, I want to hear like what we did well, what we didn't, what we need to work on. I hated listening to it, not because it was bad, but because I hated hearing my own voice. If you guys have any questions, jump on over to YouTube here. We are answering questions over on YouTube right now. Just so you guys, I wanted to show these off too. I have these. Let me know what you guys think. These aren't something I have for sale yet. This was a local person who made these for me. I thought about the possibility of like getting more of them, and if anyone's interested in like buying them, I was like, I just wanted some for myself because it's got my schizophrenic hippie logo on it, and I have been, I drink enough coffee to validate the tumbler. I don't drink enough water to validate the water bottle, but I need to be, so maybe that'll motivate me to do it more. Liz said, I don't even make content, but if I record my cats when they're silly and happen to hear myself talk, it's all over. Yeah. For someone who like content creation and motivational speaking is like my full-time job, I do not like listening to my own voice at all. And so even like not even just my voice, I don't like seeing videos with myself, which is crazy for someone who does this as like his job. But yeah, I've just never gotten comfortable with it. So if you guys are hanging out on TikTok, feel free to jump over to YouTube. You feel like your voice is low. Yeah, see, I have the opposite thing. I feel like I think my voice is low until I hear myself talk, and I'm like, no, I actually have kind of a high voice, which that's not what bothers me about it. I just don't like hearing it. It's so hard to edit yourself. Absolutely. Yeah, I really I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of having to do any sort of editing myself with content, which is tough now that I'm doing more YouTube because YouTube takes a lot of editing, which means I have to watch the entire video all the way through and edit out things. And it makes me hate my speaking and stuff more because I like word things where I'm like, no, I got to go back and reword that. And so I just like, yeah, it makes it tough. Do you listen to Destroy Lonely? I have never heard of them. I don't even know what genre that would be. Let me guess. If I had to guess based on the name, sounds like either a hard rock or metal band, but I'm just guessing there. I'm just guessing. If you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in over on YouTube. I'll be answering any questions posted on YouTube over here. Lorray, thank you so much for coming in. I sound like my 13-year-old daughter. Yeah, it's hard. I feel like that's why I mentioned it, because I'm like, I feel like that's hard for anyone to have to like listen to their own voice, because it's never how you think it sounds. Like I think everyone has this idea of how their voice sounds until they actually hear it. Someone on TikTok asked how my diagnosis has affected your relationships. In terms of like, I mean, dating stuff. I've been with Allison well before my schizophrenia diagnosis. So I didn't start experiencing symptoms of schizophrenia until we had already been dating for like a year and a half. And then I mean, she's still here. So like we she stuck around through all that. So I haven't had the issue of having to try to date as a person with schizophrenia. That would be a better question for like some of my other mutual friends who live with schizophrenia, because I have wondered that too. I'm like, that cannot be an easy thing to like bring up on a first date. But I've been with Allison since before I experienced any symptoms of schizophrenia. So, all right. And still having a good time, Allison said. That's good. Yeah, she stuck around through a lot, so I hope she's still having a good time. Ace Wolfie said hi, Allison. Um, Someone said so. Memento Mori said, as a person who is worried they may develop schizophrenia, is there anything I can do to prepare? I mean, I wish there was, because here's the thing: is like my mom has schizoaffective disorder, so I knew there was a chance I could develop schizophrenia, but it's really difficult because you can't prepare for paranoia and delusions, because when that happens, when my delusions started, you couldn't convince me. Like, I knew about schizophrenia. I was like not super well versed in it, but I knew enough because of the experience I had watching my mom struggle with it. It didn't change the outcome of like, it didn't help me initially, because like I didn't have the critical thinking skills at the time to recognize what was going on. And I didn't get diagnosed for several years after I started developing symptoms. So I don't think there's any good way to prepare for it. Educating yourself on it is the only thing you can really do. And then hope that you'll have, like, if you develop symptoms, have like moments of clarity where you can start to differentiate that you're having an issue and get the help you need, because that's one of the toughest things for people with schizophrenia, is not recognizing that they have an issue. People with schizophrenia usually fall into delusions where they don't think that what they're experiencing is hallucinations. They believe it's either something spiritual, something religious, or like some sort of super ability, and so they get into these delusions that prevent them from getting the help they need. Let's see. Emma said, "How have you been?" I've been fantastic. I almost said fantastic. Fantastic. I've been really good. It's been really busy the past couple months. We're still kind of waiting to get into our new place, which is frustrating because we were told we'd be there already. So there's been delays in the place that we're moving into that's being built. And so on top of that, I've been incredibly busy with. Been getting booked for more speaking events. I've been like just kind of all over the place. I've been getting asked to speak on podcasts more and do interviews and all sorts of stuff, which is all good. It's awesome. I'm very, very grateful, but it's a lot to keep up with. So I've been really good. I'm just trying to maintain and be able to keep up with everything going on. Someone asked, I would like to ask if I can share content in a group I moderate, the Families of Schizophrenia support group on Facebook, mostly for caretakers to better understand schizophrenia. Absolutely. I'm actually on. I'm on a couple Facebook schizophrenia support groups. I don't think I'm on that one. because I think most of the ones I'm on are not for families or loved ones. I'm usually on like the actual like diagnosed pages. But yeah, I definitely yeah, feel free to share my stuff anytime. You know, that's why I make my stuff public. That's why I make all of my content public on every platform, because I want it people to be able to use it as a resource if they feel like it'll help someone they know better understand schizophrenia or addiction or any of the things I've been through. How often do you hallucinate? So now that I'm medicated, I don't hallucinate as much as I used to. Um, I used to have hallucinations pretty much constantly. So back before I was back before I was medicated and going through treatment, my hallucinations were almost constant. Anytime I was awake, I was having either hallucinations, paranoia, or delusions. And so now that I'm medicated, I almost never experience paranoia or delusions anymore. Almost never. And hallucinations I still get periodically, but just not as frequent and not as I want to say intense. Like they're not as frightening as they used to be. They're not as like intense as they used to be. And so I probably have hallucinations once or twice a week now. And recently with my new med change, it's been even less. So I'm hoping I can get to like once every other week for symptoms. That would be amazing. And it's kind of the way it's going right now. It's been pretty good. I mean, obviously, still some here and there, but overall, pretty good. You are welcome to join as a moderator. I formally invite you to. Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, definitely. I would love to. I mean, I'm always trying to be involved with stuff like that because, like, support groups like that are kind of what got me started with advocacy. It also like helped me a lot when I didn't feel like I had anyone to talk to about it. You know. Yeah, but if anyone else has any questions, jump on in. I'm gonna maybe steal one from TikTok here. Someone on TikTok asked if we will ever have kids. Me and my wife decided a while ago that we were not going to have kids. Schizophrenia was not the only factor in that decision, but it was a part of it. You know, that is something we had to consider, was that my kids would have a high percent chance of developing schizophrenia as well. And based on watching, you know, my mom struggled with having to watch her kid go through it. It wasn't the only reason. I want to explain that too, because people always are like, well, you could, you know, there's other reasons, but we also just kids weren't really in the cards for us. I don't think so. Liz here says, my question is, have you seen any movies, shows, books that portray schizophrenia in a way that is both accurate and respectful? So some people really, really dislike Criminal Minds for their portrayal of like schizophrenia, mental illness, stuff like that, because, you know, no one wants to see a killer as, you know, someone with an illness they have. I will say Criminal Minds has the character Spencer Reed's mom. I forget her name right now. She has paranoid schizophrenia, and I forget the actress's name right now too, but that is a really, really good portrayal of someone with like paranoid schizophrenia. It reminds me a lot of the symptoms my mom displayed when I was younger. And so it might be one of the best I've personally seen. Diana, yes. Someone mentioned it in the chat. On the show, her name is Diana Reed, and she's on Criminal Minds. I personally think that's a really good example of, you know, schizophrenia and paranoia. And yeah, it's one of the better ones I've seen. That being said, I don't think I've seen a lot of the TV and film portrayals of schizophrenia. I want to wait, because what I want to do is I want to start doing reaction videos to TV shows and movies that portray schizophrenia. The problem is I don't know how to do those videos for certain, like for TV shows and stuff like that. I'm like, are there copyright issues I got to worry about there, stuff like that? So I got to figure out some of that. I want to make sure I do it right, so I don't put a bunch of time and energy into like filming these and realizing I can't even post them. So that's something I'm working on now. Cause like even like what's the one people always ask me about? A Beautiful Mind. I've never seen A Beautiful Mind. And people are always like, you're schizophrenic and you've never seen A Beautiful Mind. I don't even really know what it's about, other than apparently there's someone with schizophrenia in it. So like videos or like movies like that, TV shows, stuff like that. I want to react to those and give my like honest opinion about, you know, about the acting and about how they portray schizophrenia based on like my own lived experience. Nathan asked, "Have you ever been shopping and tried to buy something that wasn't there?" I don't experience a lot for inanimate object hallucinations. That is something that people experience. My hallucinations are usually like people. I usually hallucinate people. Before I was medicated, I used to hallucinate like faceless people and like things that were a little more scary, a little more terrifying. But I never really struggled with like inanimate objects that were hallucinations. And I think part of that is I have more auditory hallucinations than I do visual hallucinations. Visual hallucinations aren't as common for me now that I'm medicated. And so that's probably part of it. Sorry for screwing around on TikTok. No, that works. I mean it got my attention, so I'm all about it if you think it'll help. But yeah, if you guys are on TikTok right now, jump on over to YouTube. I'm only gonna be on TikTok until my phone dies, and we're at like 25% on phone battery on the on the iPhone right now. So if you're on TikTok and you want to ask any questions, anything like that, jump on over to YouTube. Also, I just appreciate any support over on YouTube. Um, yeah, but let's see what else we got here. Um, Noreen asked, "Do you experience delusions?" With medication, my delusions were almost completely eradicated. I used to experience a few different major delusions, and after I started medication, almost all the delusions I was like active delusions I was having went away. Um, I still will have like moments where if my hallucinations get really bad and I'm just having like really really bad symptoms for a couple days or a couple weeks, I will I will experience those delusions briefly in like smaller psychotic episodes. But overall, day to day, I do not experience much for delusions anymore, thankfully, thanks to medication. Do you ever hallucinate anything positive or nice? Are your delusions ever positive? I do have hallucinations that are really positive sometimes. I don't talk about those a lot because every time I do, people start romanticizing schizophrenia and being like, "Oh, I wish I could like have hallucinations that talk to me and were nice and friendly." And I'm like, "Yes, but that's not usually how it is." And so I try not to do that because I don't want people to, misrepresent the information I'm giving them and make it seem like schizophrenia is not a terrible thing to live with, cuz even with good hallucinations or like positive hallucinations, it's still not enjoyable and I would still much rather not experience it. But yes, I do have hallucinations that are friendly, that are nice, that are talkative. I sometimes I'll even have just auditory hallucinations that are literally like two or three people talking, not even to me, just talking. Like you're sitting in a cafe or something and the people behind you are just talking but not to you, you know? That's kind of that's kind of what it's like. How does your wife deal with you having delusions and hallucinations? Now that I'm medicated, the biggest thing I ask of her is just to try to distract me when I'm having symptoms. I don't respond super well to acknowledging those symptoms or definitely not feeding into those symptoms, which she's never done. But I've heard of people saying, "Oh, my friends and family members think it's helpful if they pretend they also see or hear the hallucinations." And that would really, I've had other people do that to me, and it makes it really hard for me to differentiate at that point between what's real and what's not. So that's the one thing I always say do not do with me. For the most part, I've not heard many people with schizophrenia say they want that. I think most of the time people with schizophrenia are going to say either one, reassure them that they're not there, or two, distract them. And I prefer to be distracted, so I just don't acknowledge it. That makes me a little bit calmer, and it helps me kind of get back to reality without having to go through like the all the emotions that come with recognizing that you're having hallucinations. If people approach you in public uh, when you are having hallucinations, do you appreciate that or no? It depends. It depends on how they do it because, like I said, I do not like people feeding into my hallucinations. I don't hate if people are trying to just acknowledge that hallucinations aren't there. It can be reassuring and stuff, but there's a lot of emotions that come with that. You know, it's like super embarrassing in the moment to realize that I've been, hallucinating, stuff like that. And so I prefer to just be distracted. But if you don't know someone, I would say there's no harm in trying to reassure them. That being said, everyone reacts differently. Everyone experiences hallucinations and delusions differently. So definitely don't feel like you're obligated to go up to a person you don't know and try to like calm them with hallucinations, unless you're like a police officer, EMT, something like that, where it's your job. Because you just never know how anyone specifically is going to react. And I'm not even saying react violently, but people get really frightened when they're having symptoms. And I'd be more worried about them being like, uh, uh, harm themselves or, um, you know, go into fight or flight. And a lot of people will like, that's where like people with schizophrenic relatives, stuff like that will be like, I have a schizophrenic brother who went missing because he got startled. And so, just like it's hard to know how to respond to each scenario, so it's really person to person. um Jay Gwynn said, Cody, man, love your content. Haven't seen you on my feed in a bit. Glad you're doing well. If you don't mind me asking, what happened to the podcast? You listen to every episode. That's awesome. I'm glad you liked it. So for those of you who don't know, I did a podcast with Zachary Galloway called Criminally Mental. A lot of people ask like if me and Zach had a falling out or anything like that. Honestly, it just got to be too much. I was in the process of selling my house and moving. I couldn't keep up with the schedule like I wanted to. We were having to cancel like basically every week that it came up. One of us was having to cancel, and it got really difficult to manage with our schedules. So that's kind of what happened. Is it just didn't work out for me and my schedule and like everything I had going on at the time. Let's see. Someone asked, the angry potato asks, I've been able to sleep much. Oh, been unable to sleep much and seen red-eyed shadow beings a lot more. Any tips for dealing with increased symptoms? One, I would always talk to your doctor, talk to your psychiatrist, see if maybe you need a medication update. Two would be if I'm having increased symptoms, I try to identify like, am I having more stress in my day-to-day life? Is there something that is causing me to experience more symptoms? Like if I get really stressed, it tends to lead to more symptoms. But I try to identify if that's the issue or if my medication's just not working as well as it used to. There's a lot of different factors that could play a role in that. Do you appreciate when people check in on you in public when you're having hallucinations or not so much? Not in the moment. After the fact, I do, because I'm like, you know what, that person came up. That couldn't have been easy because, if you see a 6'1" schizophrenic tattooed guy, like to come up to me and reassure me is like, it's got to be a little out of a lot of people's comfort zone. So I appreciate it after the fact. In the moment, it's hard for me to appreciate it because I don't understand what's going on. And realizing that I'm hallucinating, like I said, comes with a lot of emotions. I get embarrassed, I get nervous, I get frightened. And so it's not that I don't appreciate it at the time. It's just that I have a lot of different emotions that happen. So yeah, it's one of those things where after the fact, I really do appreciate it though. Staying on my goals is my best distraction. Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever tried to pet a dog that wasn't there? I used to hallucinate like pets and stuff actually before. Like it was always mostly people or like faceless people, but briefly while I was like in more like of a deep psychosis and experiencing more hallucinations, I did occasionally see like animals or pets, but um not now that I'm medicated. That's not really something I experience, or it's not something I'm aware of, at least if I am experiencing it, because I'm not the type of person who always feels comfortable, walking up and asking to pet someone's dog. I'll always say something, oh, look at the dog, and then hope that they're like, do you want to pet my dog? And I'll be like, yes. Uh, but I don't love like going up to people and asking. So it's very possible that I've walked past a dog that was a hallucination and not realized it. But I wouldn't know, I guess, unless I recorded it or something. Do you have any speaking events near Milwaukee coming up? Yes. But well, I shouldn't say yes. Potentially. I have a few that might be announced here soon. From local things in Milwaukee. I have like two that I know of, neither of which have I signed like the final paperwork. So I don't know absolutely that they're going on. But in the next 2 weeks here, I should be able to confirm if I'm going up there. So if I'm doing a live in like 2 weeks, maybe hop in and ask me again, because I think the answer is going to be yes, but I can't verify today. Liz said, neuropsychology was one of my favorite courses when I was getting my psych degree. I found it interesting, really, for my own knowledge, because I have ADHD/depression. Does that field interest you too? Absolutely. I mean, this is an illness that has, like taken over my life. I think most people who struggle with mental illness or mental health issues are a little fascinated by it, because we see everyone else who can like do all these things and get through day to day without having hallucinations, or like in ADHD. My wife has ADHD, and like I imagine for her it's got to be the same way, where you see people being able to function and organize thoughts and like do things day to day, and like it gets to a point where you're like, how is the brain capable of functioning so well for some people, and then for many people, like having all of these like different things that it does. Like for me, it causes hallucinations, but then for some people the brain can do all these other issues that makes it really hard to live like a day-to-day life. And so it's something that obviously I think about all the time, and it definitely makes me interested in learning more too. I do miss Damien the panda. Yeah. That was Zach's Squishmallow we always had on the podcast. If you guys are on TikTok right now and you have any questions, jump on over to YouTube. I'm answering questions over there. Plus, we're getting real close to having 50,000 YouTube followers, and that's my goal for this next couple weeks here. Let's see. Ooh, here's a good question. Someone asked, where would you most like to do speaking events? I think there's a few places I would really love to do speaking events. One would be Portland. I've always wanted to visit Portland. The other would be anywhere in Florida. I have never been to Florida, and I know it sounds chaotic, and like I just Florida itself, because I live in Wisconsin. I would love to take like a January, February speaking event to get away from the cold, to go to like Florida or something. Have you had hallucinations with people you know? Yes, it's not super common for me. I have at one point hallucinated like my mom, my little brother, my wife, like a few like coworkers and stuff. That was more so when I was on medication, but it wasn't working really well yet. Recently, I haven't hallucinated anyone like I know. Usually it's people that I don't recognize. How do you explain schizophrenia to those who are completely not aware of it? If they have no knowledge of schizophrenia, because most people do, right? But if someone is like, what is schizophrenia? I just keep it really simple. Schizophrenia is a mental illness that causes hallucinations, delusions, and paranoia, and then go from there. Because if you start there, people can have follow-up questions where I can explain it a little bit better. But just for like a baseline, I would say description of it. That's what I would say. Um, Someone asked about dysfunctions and issues with medication. All medication is going to be a little different. It reacts differently for each person. Everyone has different brain chemistry. So, medication that works well for me and has no symptoms for me may be different for someone else. So, if you're having issues specifically with medication, I would talk to whoever prescribes your medication. Let them know. Be super honest. And I know some of those things are difficult to bring up, but being super honest about that is the best way for them to be able to help you and get you meds that don't cause as many side effects or you know, provide more symptom relief. Oh my god, one of my favorite questions ever. Brittany Gish asked me, do I have any tattoos planned? Brittany, let me tell you, I have a list of tattoos I want to get. My next one I want to get actually is going to be an owl on the chest with like the wingspan all the way across the shoulders. So that's my next plan for one. I got to ask my artist about it because I need it's going to be probably my most expensive tattoo, and I want to save up for it a bit because I know it's going to be it's going to be a costly one and it's going to hurt. So I want to mentally and financially prepare for that. But I got a bunch of other ones I want to get to. I have a Game of Thrones related one I want to get, and there's my wife drew a little gnome that I want to get tattooed on me somewhere as well. Someone asked, why are the hallucinations so dark and rarely never happy? Well, and see, that's the thing. I don't want to create this image that they're always dark. I definitely have, like, a lot of the time, my hallucinations are chit chat. It's not even negative. It's not always positive either. Sometimes it's literally just chit chat in my brain, people talking, and not always even to me. Sometimes they're ignoring me and talking to each other. So it's like a lot of the times, I do have positive hallucinations. I do have like neutral hallucinations, even. It's not always negative. I think it also depends on your mental state. I've always had other issues too. Like, I have like trauma from childhood, and I have a lot of, I watched my mom grow up with schizophrenia. So I have a lot of negativity around the illness in my brain because I watched it, I watched a family member struggle with it. And so I think it's a lot about, and they say in different cultures, people have like more positive hallucinations. So I think it's a lot about the person themselves, which will do like, that'll influence, I think, a little bit more of their hallucinations, delusions, stuff like that. Safi just said thank you because they said they learned so much from this. I just like posting these. They're not really questions, but I appreciate anyone who's like, oh, thank you so much for your content. No, thank you for watching it, because I could be saying all of these things to 10 viewers and it could be reaching no one. So it's really because people watch my content and share my content that I'm able to do this, and it's actually able to reach people and help people. Have you ever done speaking events up in North Wisconsin, like Eau Claire area? I've done, like, we're in like La Crosse area, so I've done a ton over here. I'm trying to get more like up in like Door County even area or up north from there. Most of mine have been southern La Crosse or like western La Crosse, or I mean Wisconsin, not La Crosse. So like southern Wisconsin and like western Wisconsin. Let's see. Oh, Casey said, hello. What do you feel the difference is between DID and schizophrenia? So I know that DID is going to be something where people are experiencing several different alters. And what I experience is I'm hearing things that are not at all a part of me, or it doesn't feel like it. Whereas like with alters, their body is creating like creating alters, usually to protect the host, from some sort of trauma or childhood trauma of sorts. Whereas hallucinations are very much just, it's a lot, I don't want to say random, but that's kind of what they are. They're random. They usually sometimes they have nothing to do with me. They have nothing to do with my past. Schizophrenia can have like precursors because of trauma and stuff like that, just like DID, but the actual illness and how it presents itself couldn't be more different. What we're experiencing are two very different things. I'm having auditory and visual hallucinations, meaning things I can see and hear. People with DID are literally experiencing another alter fronting and like taking over as a way to protect the host. I hope all my verbiage was good there, because I'm gonna admit I only know as much about DID as watching other creators like A System and other creators. So I don't ever claim to be like an expert in DID. I don't even claim to be an expert in schizophrenia. I'm just someone who lives with it, you know. So ooh, someone asked, where can we get the cups? So I want to know what you guys think of them. For those of you on TikTok, you can't see the cups I have up over here, but jump on YouTube if you want to check them out. I have these new schizophrenic hippie cups. I am going to be doing some sort of giveaway, trying to get people to jump over to my YouTube. So I'm going to do some giveaway on like TikTok and YouTube, trying to get people to, help me hit 50,000. And then I'm going to give some of these away. If people really like them, I've considered buying like a bulk order and selling them. But I would have to know that like people are interested, because this is from a local person. So this isn't like other merch I've done where, they make it, they ship it out. I would be responsible for like the down payment and like, which is fine. I'll do that if people are interested. I would just have to like have the money up front to do it. And then I'd have to know people are interested, so I don't end up with like 50 of these, which not the end of the world. I could do more giveaways and stuff, but I just kind of want to know what people think about that. I'm really behind on questions here, so I'm going to cycle through a bunch of these here. Do you ever hallucinate happy things? It seems like you only have dark hallucinations. So I did just address this, but yes, I do have positive hallucinations. I do have just like neutral hallucinations too. And so it's one of those things where it's going to be different person to person, but let's see. I'm going to skip some of these here. If I skip a question and you really want me to answer, ask it again if you notice that I skipped it. How did you know you had it? I didn't for quite a while, actually. So when I first developed schizophrenia, it wasn't something that it wasn't something that I recognized right away. It was something that other people around me started recognizing because I wasn't acting the same. Allison, my wife at the time, was my girlfriend. If you talk to her about when I first started experiencing it, she'll tell you there was times where she would try to talk to me and like I would say words, but they would make no sense. I was like not physically here. I was in like super deep psychosis. Nothing I was saying was making sense. And then, I would be talking to people who weren't there. I would be hearing things that weren't there and trying to hide all this from everyone around me because I was paranoid. So the people around me noticed before I did. Sorry if I missed comments here. Oh, someone posted something about DID here. The system is being developed for commercial use. I don't know what this is. We'll just ignore that. He went over my comment. I'm so sorry. If you want to ask it again, I'll try to get to it. I didn't mean to skip anyone. I got way more than I was planning to get on here. Feel free to ask again. Lee wants to know, is schizophrenia due to too much dopamine? I don't know if it's proven, but that is what they believe. So like the tough thing about schizophrenia, the science behind schizophrenia is, truthfully, there's still a lot they don't know about it. But it is thought to be an overabundance of dopamine, which, like I said, I don't know if they've proved it. I think last I read, there was like enough case studies that showed that people with schizophrenia usually had higher levels of dopamine in the brain. So I think that's what it is. Once again, I am not a professional. I'm not a doctor of any sort. I just go based off of like the information that I've been able to research on my own. Shout out to Ace Wolfie. They just said my hand hurts from posting his YouTube. Thank you so much for Ace Wolfie posting that in TikTok. If you guys are over on TikTok, save Ace Wolfie some time. Save Ace Wolfie some time from having to constantly post in there. Jump over to YouTube. I'd really appreciate it. I love the cups. I'd definitely be interested. Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely, like I said, if enough people are interested, I think I would definitely do more of these. I actually see. We have some other people saying they would like the cups too. So, all right, I'll probably look into this then. I'll probably see how much I can like get a bulk order for, because they're not super cheap, and I don't want you guys to have to pay an insane amount for them. So I think if I do a bigger amount, they can, help me out with price a little bit. So that way I don't have to ask you guys to pay as much for them. Oh, Ty asked, going through a part in time where I may get a diagnosis for depression with psychosis to schizophrenia. Is there any difference in treatment? I don't believe so. It depends. I guess it depends on your psychiatrist. Like once again, I don't know specifically. I do know that I briefly, and I haven't really talked about this publicly much. I want to make content on it, but I want to wait until I'm in a little bit better of a place. For the first time in my life, in the last couple months, I was going through and the reason I didn't post a lot of content, I was going through a major depressive episode. And the reason they didn't diagnose me with major depression is because I have not experienced this before. This wasn't common for me. I've had a lot of depression specifically related to my schizophrenia symptoms, being depressed that I was like going through this on new medication, stuff like that. But in itself, I've the last couple months I've had a non-situational major depressive episode, and so I've never struggled with that before. So I am for the first time trying like antidepressants that they thought might help. They seem to be helping recently, so hoping that keeps up. And I want to do content about this, but I'm just not in it. Like I'm not far away from it enough yet, because it's tough. It's one of those things where with schizophrenia, I didn't start making content until 4 or 5 years after my diagnosis. Gave me a lot of time to process it, see how I feel about it. So same thing with like the depressive episode and experiencing that. I want to eventually do content on it, but I want to make sure I'm in a good place. Do you feel like the voices have their own lives? Maybe during psychotic episodes, but no. Like looking completely like while I'm on, like when I'm like doing really well and treatment and medication and everything like that is working for me, I don't think so. I don't think they're independent at all. I know that they're something I experience. That, I mean, medication has proved that they go away. So it's not something that I like consciously think about. My uncle also has it, but also has ADHD, which is a lack of dopamine. I've heard this before, which is like, that it would be a direct like conflict with the idea that it would be too much dopamine. But I don't know if there's enough cases of like both where they can acknowledge it as like as something that would for sure make it like an incorrect statement that dopamine causes, or dopamine like in some way affects the human brain to the point where they may have hallucinations. Have you ever struggled with taking your medication? When I'm doing well, I feel like I don't need it or want my meds anymore. I went through that a few times when I got started. I think everyone does. Excuse me. I think everyone does, because like you kind of nailed on the head. As soon as you start doing well, you're like, oh, I don't need medication. Like I probably didn't need it the whole time. No, what's happening is the medication's working and your brain is tricking you into think that it was never a problem, because I mean that's what schizophrenia does. It makes you think that you never have had or have an issue, and so that's why it gets to be a little difficult there. Someone says my dad has it and medicates with alcohol. Do you think that really quiets the head? Briefly. So I used to, a lot of people know this, I'm also a recovered addict. I used to use drugs as a way to self-medicate and cope with my hallucinations. It gives you very brief relief from symptoms, but it doesn't work long term, and in fact it probably makes symptoms worse long term. So like I would use drugs as a way to cope with the voices I was having, and even if it quieted it for just like a couple hours, I felt like that was worth it. But what I didn't realize was in the long term it was making my hallucinations worse. It was making them more dark. It was keeping me awake longer periods of time, which meant I was having more hallucinations and more paranoia. Became a never-ending cycle. And so like even though they may feel like it's helping, it's very short-term relief. Does schizophrenia have any long-term effects like anxiety? I mean, I think schizophrenia can make you more at risk for certain things. I know statistically they've said having schizophrenia can put you at higher risk for like Alzheimer's, I believe, and dementia. So I know that for sure, but I'd have to look into anything else related to it. Um, I'm gonna keep going through questions here. Once again, if I miss anything, just let me know because I'm trying to get to everything, but sometimes I forget. Have you run into any issues with law enforcement during an episode? Not like severe issues. I've had like miscommunication, and I've had like where people would think I'm on drugs and call the cops, stuff like that. But nothing like super severe. I've been very fortunate. My experience with law enforcement hasn't been like terrible over time. Are you able to travel internationally, or are you turned away at the borders due to your diagnosis? I don't believe they can prevent you from going somewhere due to your diagnosis. I can't travel internationally because I'm a felon. So it has nothing to do with my schizophrenia, but I do have issues traveling just because I have a criminal record. So that's my problem. I'm hoping that I'm going through the process of trying to get my felony pardoned, and then I can worry about if that's a problem. Then I'll have to worry about that when it comes. Um, Someone said, "What would you say to someone who is diagnosed with schizophrenia who thinks they have DID, but they have no amnesia?" I mean, the best thing you can do is try to get that person to talk to a psychiatrist or doctor and try to have them explain the difference between DID and schizophrenia and try to see if they're able to help them understand that they can't get the correct treatment until they get the correct diagnosis. Would you call the voices characters? The voices to me have just that's all I've really ever referred to them as. They are just the voices, they are there. Like I recognize they're there after I'm done having hallucinations. In the moment, like it's so real to me that I don't recognize that they are hallucinations. I think they're real. So it's I don't really have like a certain categorization for them. I just I try to acknowledge them for what they are, which are just like auditory hallucinations. Someone said, "Do you ever encounter people who are really against psychiatric medicine?" I do, as someone who takes a stimulant for ADHD. Yeah, no, there's definitely a huge stigma around psychiatric medication, and rightfully so. There's a lot of people who, it's a very mind altering drug because your mind with schizophrenia is experiencing like major inconsistencies. And so antipsychotics are a very mind altering substance in the fact that it's trying to correct the overabundance of dopamine, like I said, like they believe it is, but also just to be able to get people to react correctly to certain medication and be able to get them back to experiencing hallucinations, at least to minimal efforts. But yeah, there is a ton of different um, stigma issues surrounding medication, and the best thing I do is just explain to people like how much it's helped me, because the only reason I get to do what I'm doing now is because I've been properly medicated. Have you ever felt like hallucinations have taken over your body? No. Usually they've gotten super overwhelming before, like to the point where like I basically shut down, curl up in a corner and cry. Like they've gotten to the point where they have debilitated me, but I've never felt like hallucinations have taken over. They've definitely made it like hard for me to they affect my motor function, stuff like that, but not because I feel like they've taken over, mostly just because it gets really overwhelming and it can make me extremely anxious. Does it offend you that people joke about having voices in their head? What's a real struggle for people who actually have them? um, this is one thing where I struggle with, because people get really upset with me because I do joke about having schizophrenia a lot. As a person with schizophrenia, I do occasionally make jokes about it as a method of coping through humor. um, Not everyone enjoys that. Some people with schizophrenia are upset that I do that, but it's how I cope, and it's also a way to help educate people who may have not known about schizophrenia before. I never mock anyone individually with schizophrenia. I don't mock people in general about having schizophrenia. I mock my own experiences. I kind of make jokes about things I've been through. Very self-deprecating humor. I'm not trying to call anyone out except for my own lived experiences was kind of what I go off of. And yeah, I have people that really don't like because I recently even I tried doing stand up and it went really well, and I'm considering doing it again. And I know some people are not a fan of me doing stuff like that, but it helps me a lot. Um, the best way to restrain a person with schizophrenia during an uncontrolled situation. Hopefully, you never get to a point where a person with schizophrenia needs to be restrained. A lot of the time, people with schizophrenia, when having symptoms, if you've ever seen any of my videos, me recording myself having symptoms, what you'll notice is I get very terrified. If anything, I try to avoid people. I try to like I just said earlier, I have literally curled up into a ball, crawled into the corner of my room and like just laid there for hours until hallucinations have went away. I've never been an issue to like I've never been like someone who has ever almost caused harm to anyone or anything like that. The closest I've ever gotten is harming myself. I've never been a threat to other people due to my schizophrenia. There's like a big misconception that people with schizophrenia are like dangerous in some way. That being said, if you know a person with schizophrenia that is having uncontrolled like issues where you need to restrain them, that's to the point where they really need to be looking at medication options or even like really looking into treatment options because it's not super common, but it can happen. And if it is happening, you got to make sure that person's getting the help they need. Can talking about it cause episodes like a trigger? I wouldn't. It's something that I haven't noticed in my own experience. I'm sure that for some people, especially if they're early on in like their recovery journey, this is, they're not like well into medication or anything like that. I think it could bring up a lot of feelings and probably even cause enough stress to lead to hallucinations. I think because I have really good medication and I have lived with schizophrenia for long enough, I'm able to talk about it with very minimal effect to my mental health. I try not to there are certain specifics I found that make it a little more likely for me to experience, like a trigger. But it's very specific. It's very specific, like encounters or experiences I've had. Someone said, but for people who don't actually have voices in their head who do joke about it, does that offend you? No, it doesn't. And once again, this comes back to I know it does offend some people, and I don't think they're wrong to be offended either. Like, if you're someone who struggles with it and you're really new to it, it might have upset me early on because I'm like, it was really hard for me. And like I said, now I use it as a way to cope, but early on, I don't think I would have felt that way. And so it's going to be person to person here. You're never going to make everyone happy. I'm sure there are a lot of people that would prefer that I don't joke about schizophrenia, and especially prefer that people who don't have schizophrenia would joke about it. But one, I can't control the actions of other people, so as long as they're not making fun of me or an individual with schizophrenia, they're making fun of more like the illness. And if the video is educational in any way, like helping people better understand the illness, at that point, I try to be supportive that the person is understanding that they're talking about a real illness and making sure that they're not spreading any misconceptions or leading to any of the stigma. So, like, if I see a joke, quote unquote joke, about someone with schizophrenia being dangerous or hurting someone, that's different because I'm like, there's the studies have proven people with schizophrenia are way more likely to be, victims of violent crime than to commit violent crime. And so I don't think that's fair to make it, increase the stigma around schizophrenia. But if someone does a joke about like they're talking to them, talking to a person who isn't there, the person disappears, That's like the main schizophrenia joke that people do. That doesn't bother me so much because I'm like, you know what? If it helps even one person better understand schizophrenia or helps a person be like, huh, that was, kind of a goofy joke. I guess I don't understand it. And they go learn more about schizophrenia. It's kind of a win-win. Um, Cody, I'm seriously impressed with your phone's battery life. It's still going. Ace, it's not even red yet. The battery bar isn't even red at this point. I don't know. I thought it was way closer to dying. My phone battery is still going. If you guys are in the TikTok chat and you have any questions for me, jump on over to YouTube. I'm trying to catch up with questions over here, but we are getting there. Does it affect you physically? Absolutely. People with schizophrenia can experience a lot of different physical symptoms. One of which is I get twitches, or like that's the best way I can describe them. Like some people call them ticks. I don't want to call them ticks because I don't have Tourette's or anything, and I think that is more like for Tourette's. But when I'm having symptoms, I get like facial like twitching, stuff like that, and that could be like a form of uh, uh, tardive dyskinesia. And so I don't know a lot about that, but I know there are physical issues that can come from physical ailments that can come from schizophrenia as well. Does schizophrenia come with intrusive thoughts? So for me personally, no. There might be people with schizophrenia who also experience intrusive thoughts, but they are two different things. So it's important to realize that intrusive thoughts are something happening inside your head, and hallucinations can be similar, but they're happening outside. They're very external. So when I have hallucinations, I am hearing them around me. They are not something that I am experiencing. It's not something I'm experiencing inside my head, if that makes sense. Do you think recent years people have been more accepting of schizophrenia? I think it's getting better. I think we have a long way to go, obviously. But yeah, I do think it's getting better. All right. So, and just so you know, Ace Wolfie, it just gave me the 10% battery warning on my. You'd think that TikTok would drain your battery. Yeah, it's still going. But yeah, it's at 10% now. So it just gave me the 10% warning. Um, what can you do to challenge the stigma around schizophrenia? I would say, Tyler, the best thing I could recommend is, do as much independent research you can. And then when you see people using, like if they're saying things that are not reflecting the actual illness, try to acknowledge that, point it out, and get people to realize that, they might have misconception about certain aspects of schizophrenia. Because, like I said, it's really, really common for people to think people with schizophrenia are violent inherently, which studies have not proven, and so stuff like that, I'll always push back on, and I will do it openly and loudly because I want people to be very aware that that's not necessarily the case. Are there people with schizophrenia who have been violent in the past? Yes. Just like any regular person has the capability of being a violent person, but just trying to defeat some of the really harmful stigmas around schizophrenia is kind of what we go for there. But all right. Well, this was actually a super awesome live. I think we just hit an hour, so I might start wrapping it up here. But thank you guys so much for coming in. Once again, if you guys like these cups, let me know because I'm thinking about getting more and maybe selling them here on TikTok and on my link in my bio. But for now, keep an eye out because I am going to be doing a giveaway for for these two specifically. So within the week, I'm going to post a new YouTube video, and on that YouTube video, I'm going to allow people to, if they follow me on YouTube and they comment on that video, I'll put them on a wheel spin, and I'll do that on a live. So I'll get all the names, put it on a wheel, and then I'll spin it, and you have the chance to win one of these cups. I have a few more. I'm trying to decide how many I want to do this with and if I want to try to sell the remainder. But at least these two will be up for raffle. So make sure you're already following me on YouTube. That way, all you have to do is comment on the video when it comes out. And that way, if it's something you want to be in the raffle to win one of these, you have the potential to do that just by subscribing to my YouTube and then being, commenting on whatever the most recent video is at the time. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming in and asking me all the questions. I really appreciate it. I'm going to start doing lives like this a lot. So if you feel bad, because I know someone just said they just got onto TikTok. If you feel bad because you're running late, keep an eye out because I'm going to be doing these. I want to say every day, but I know myself. I'm not going to be able to keep up with it every day just because I'm mentally ill, man. I have a hard enough time keeping up with life day to day. So it's going to be something that I'm going to do anytime I have a little free time. I want to come on here, be live on both TikTok and YouTube, answer questions. And so we're going to do a lot more of this, but I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me and just kind of watching my content, checking it out. Be sure to follow me on both YouTube and Instagram, and then keep an eye out for the raffle I'm going to be doing for the new cups and all that. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming in, hanging out with me. I definitely want to do this again soon. So hopefully in the next day or two. Like I said, I'd love to do it tomorrow, but we'll see. I'm not going to commit because I know that I have issues with that. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'm going to end these lives and get going. But thank you guys so much. Take it easy and have an awesome night.